One time my dad accidentally made my whole family stay at a brothel for our family vacation. This was a couple years ago when we went to the Philippines for Christmas, and a typhoon hit right when we landed, and since we were staying at my grandma's house, we had to evacuate as soon as we got to her house, and her house ended up getting flooded past the second floor, so we had to look for a hotel to stay at for the night. This typhoon experience used to be a story time by itself. I don't know what my dad had against Airbnbs at the time, but I found an Airbnb that could house like 16 people, and the owner even offered to get extra beds and clean water because she wanted to help people that were affected by the typhoon, and she even reduced the rate to $50 for that night. And my dad was like, no, I found a hotel for an even better price, $25, and it's been around for 100 years, so it's really reliable. My sister and I were like, ew, what if it's haunted? And my dad was like, humble yourselves. There are people that have nowhere else to stay at for the night. And besides, this used to be the cool hangout spot when your mom and I were in high school. Long story short, we ended up going, and the hotel was so gross. It was so old and run down. Right off the bat, there were so many women at the lobby and bar and creepy looking men that when my dad got there, the guy at the front desk straight up asked my dad, are you sure you want to stay here? Because he saw that he was with his family. My dad was so confused, and he was like, yeah, I used to go here all the time. And the guy was like, have you tried that hotel and that hotel? And he listed a bunch of other ones since we were on a strip with a bunch of hotels. And my dad was like, yeah, but they're all full because of the typhoon and because I want to stay here anyway for nostalgia purposes. I'm not even kidding. This is pretty much how our room looked like, except the wallpaper was a little bit better and there were dirty bed sheets and pillows, and the cross was like in the middle. As soon as we got in, a rat or a cockroach, who knows, because it was huge, ran under one of the beds, and my mom, my sister, and I knew that we weren't gonna get any sleep that night. My sister and I took turns sleeping to guard the room, and she woke me up at like 3 a.m. because the creepiest thing happened. There was like a really quiet knock, and it was 3 times. It was like, and then silence for a bit, and then it's like, I got really quiet. I started to like jiggle the doorknob, and then I got quiet again. Then they slammed on the door like so hard. It was such a hard hit that the wall shook and the cross in between both of the beds flipped upside down that me and my sister started screaming. I'm sorry if I didn't know we'd be fighting demons or prostitutes that night. My mom was already awake and was screaming with us, and my dad was so pissed. The next morning when he was on his way to meet up with one of his friends from high school, he was bitching me and my sister out. He was like, you guys are so spoiled and entitled. You've been living in Canada for too long. You guys have it so good and so easy there. When he met up with one of his friends, he told him what happened, and he told him like what hotel he was staying at, and his friend was like, why would you take your family to a whorehouse? Sorry, they're kind of old school, but my dad was like, stop, it's not funny. And his friend was like, no dude, like for the last like 2 decades, like it's a brothel now. After my dad accidentally made my family stay at a brothel for our family vacation because he had a thing against Airbnbs, he eventually caved into using one, but the Airbnb that he chose was infested with ants. In true typical Filipino dad fashion, he never brought up staying at a brothel ever again. Watch part 1 for the brothel story, because this one will be about the Airbnb infested with ants, and pictures will be included. My dad used my Airbnb account, and of all the places that he could have chosen, he chose a place that had no reviews just because it was in a nice, clean building in an area that had a lot of things to do. In his defense, it didn't look that bad. Like, it was pretty simple. Although this blurry dining table picture is a little bit sus. So is this bed with no bed sheets, blankets, and pillows. But this kitchen isn't so bad. When we got to the building, it actually was brand new, modern, and clean. And my dad was like, see, why were you guys so worried about not having any reviews? But as soon as we got into the room, there was a really strong smell of bug spray, as if like the owner was like literally spraying the house in layers, and he kept the window closed. Everyone started to get headaches from it, so we opened the windows to let it air out, and my sister and I decided to take a nap on the bed, the one with no bed sheets, to get rid of the headache. And as we're talking before we crashed, mine and my sister's head started to get really itchy. So we're talking, we're like also scratching our head at the same time. My sister was like, your head's itchy too? And she looks over and sees that my hair is literally covered in ants. So she screams, I scream, and I start patting my head violently to get rid of the ants. And I look over at her and I'm like, oh my god, your head too. And she's like, oh my god. So we're both screaming and like patting our heads down. My parents run over because they hear us screaming, and all they see is me and my sister going like this, and they come over and help like pat our heads down to get rid of the ants. Once we felt like we got all the ants, my dad was like, go shower, I'll clean the bed, because the bed was literally covered in ants too. So most Airbnbs include towels and blankets, right? And I go shower first expecting there to be towels, and instead a bunch of ants start crawling from the drain on the floor, and were crawling all over my feet. So I scream again, but before I ran out, I remembered that all the windows were open, so I looked for a towel to cover myself, and all that was there were 2 face towels. We unfortunately didn't bring our own either, so I literally run out of the bathroom with the 2 face towels like this. So my parents and my sister run over because they're like, now what? And I'm standing there in front of. This is the final part of when my family stayed at an ant-infested Airbnb after my dad accidentally made us stay at a brothel for our family vacation. We last left off with ants crawling all over mine and my sister's hair while we were laying in bed and ants coming up from the drain of the bathroom floor. I messaged the Airbnb owner so many times because he never responded that his place was covered in ants. When he did respond, he was like, oh, I'll have someone come in and clean it, and that person never came. My sister and I were too scared to sleep on the bed after what happened, so we were like asleep on the couch, but the couch was just as bad. It was crawling with ants and it was also really dusty. Whatever, we had no other choice but to sleep there, and that night before we were having dinner, my family was chilling in the living room, and out of nowhere there were explosions that were happening outside. If you know where I'm from in the Philippines, my area has a reputation of terrorist attacks and bombing, so my parents were expecting the worst. My dad started screaming, get down, everyone get down! And since me and my sister were closest to the window, he literally runs up to both of us, drags us down and shields us with his body, and everyone's like screaming again. It was like a war zone where my whole family was like, oh my god, dad, take cover! And we're like crawling. I looked up and I saw the reflection on like the shiny fridge that there was like lights coming out from outside, and it turned out to be fireworks. My parents were so dramatic for no reason, even though the whole time they were like, it's not even that dangerous here, it's just Western propaganda. So whatever, we all finally calmed down and we're about to have dinner because we were having it delivered. And of course, while we're about to get utensils and plates, there's ants all over them. This isn't my picture, but this is what it looked like. And the one clean bowl that we used at the end pretty much looked like this. When we were about to go to sleep, my sister and I realized that we didn't have a blanket. And in the one closet that was there was a large piece of cloth, and my dad was like, oh, there is an extra blanket here. But it turned out to be a curtain. It was also dirty, but it didn't even matter because we didn't need it. We're in the Philippines, it's really hot. And me and my sister didn't even sleep because we were too scared that the ants would come back on the couch. We left immediately the next day. I finally chose the Airbnb this time, and this Airbnb had no problems. I can't believe there's a filter for this, but by the end of the trip, I felt like I was like this.
I'm from China, where we don't have many wild animals in the cities. We don't even have squirrels. So after I came to Canada, I really enjoy watching wild animals. One day, I saw a unique squirrel. It was larger than the others. It was very beautiful. It had black and white stripes and a large fluffy tail. So stylish. So I chased after it for 10 minutes to take some pictures. And I got really good ones because I was so close to it. It kept turning around to watch at me. I thought it was so friendly, it wanted to play with me. But after I came home, my roommate told me it was not a squirrel. It was a skunk, and the skunks can spray.
One thing I like about me is that I'm nothing like you, and I never will be someone who loves.
Merriweather Pavilion almost killed me and hundreds of other Halsey fans, and yet Halsey is getting blamed. Make it make sense. So if you didn't know, there was a Halsey concert that did not happen last night for good reason, and I just want to explain why the fuck I don't blame Halsey and why you shouldn't either. When I tell you this was the most unprofessional venue and unorganized venue I've ever been to in my whole entire fucking life. First, let's start out by saying that they said that they were very strict. We couldn't even line up until 5, and yet they let people line up at 4 in the morning. And then they honored this system by labeling them 1 to 100 and stopped at 100. Or like 109 or some crazy number. So bitch, you already know I was mad, and I got there at fucking 11 a.m. And I was not part of the first 100. Then they didn't even honor this fucking system. Instead of letting the first 100 in first, they let the first 50 people go in first, like 30 minutes before everybody else. To make it even worse, they were not ready for the amount of people that were gonna fucking show up. And I do mean the amount of people. So then they did something that I've never seen any venue did. They took the people from the back and split them up and put them at a separate exit. And then were telling us that they were just going to open both doors and let us fucking figure it out. I ain't never heard of no shit like that. They really said Hunger Games in this bitch. This is the shit that they tried to do. Literally about to start a riot. So then people started getting mad. They started talking to staff, trying to be nice, but telling them like, no, we're not gonna have this. So finally the staff was like, okay, we're gonna let you guys go in first and then we'll let them go in. Okay, fine, whatever. We get in. Again, disorganized as fuck. They couldn't even get us into a line so that we could get into the pit. So finally, when everything calmed down, I thought, okay, now we're gonna start rolling with it. The first act goes on and it starts pouring down fucking rain. And mind you, this is an inside outside venue. So there are people on a fucking lawn just getting rained on. And they didn't even stop it. No, apparently they got a tornado warning before we got a tornado warning. That's when they brought people in from the lawn, not when they were getting rained on. This is literally how they had us. You see this shit? This is when they should have canceled the fucking concert. They should have at least told us the concert was canceled. The whole time, staff is laughing. They're making jokes. They're videotaping us without our permission. They're hyping us up and just making fun of us. Even as water is falling from the ceilings onto people, onto electronical items. It's a dangerous situation. And when I say water was falling from the ceiling, bitch, that's fucking water onto people, onto the equipment. That laugh you hear in the background is a staff member. That's not somebody who's close to me. Then you would have think they would have told us after that they would have canceled the concert. Then we get the tornado warning and they tell us we cannot leave. And then the rain starts pouring down so hard, the pit starts filling. The pit that has electrical wiring in it. This is when it first started. This is literally 5 minutes later. There's people screaming. People are screaming because the staff won't let them out of the pit even though there's electrical wiring. We could have all been People are screaming in the background. They're freaking out and they're being trapped inside a pit where again there is electrical wiring and staff is refusing to let people out because there's too many people in the hall. At one point, one of the girls that was next to me bum rushed to the back and she smacked the fuck out of a staff member. And when he went down, everybody rushed up the stairs. Except for my dumbass because I didn't want to leave barricade. I don't know. And the crazy part about this is that, is they made sure that the people that was working with them got out of the pit. Also, before they got out of the pit, I forgot to mention this. A fucking squirrel came down, got caught on the run-in, and they kicked the squirrel under the water and they didn't want to get him out. We had to literally start screaming to save this fucking animal because they were like, no. They were trying to kick him under the equipment, kick him under the water, like just being weird. Like this was weird behavior. So finally, the rain stops, right? The pit is still filled. The draining system is not working the way it's supposed to, or at least not fast enough, right? And Shepard comes out, he looks down, he sees all the wiring, and I just knew at that point we was not getting a concert. And he was not going to let Halsey come out either. And at this point, people in the back are passing out. The pavilion is still not taking it serious. They're still laughing. They're still videotaping us. They're still not answering anybody's question. And then they told people to get back on the lawn. I'm dead fucking serious. They told those people they needed to go back to their seats and go back on the lawn. And then the people that were in the top rafters, they had to go back up there as well. Even though it had stopped raining, there were still clouds in the sky. And we just knew that there was a forecast for it to start raining again. And then somebody came out, said that they were going to put on a show in 15 minutes and for us to wait. And like dumbasses that we were, we all stood there, we all waited, but only because we all really wanted to see Halsey, or we at least thought Halsey was going to come out on stage. But with the way that people were acting, the way that staff was acting, I understand why she didn't, because she didn't want somebody to come bum rush the stage, make it more dangerous. They had us sitting there for another 25 minutes before they told us that it was canceled. And then some people parked in the garage. We couldn't even go back the way that we came, because it decided to flood. And apparently the water that had flooded was shit water. So I don't know if the water we were standing in was shit water, but that's what people are saying. The water that had flooded the pathway that some people weren't supposed to go back but went back was shit water. At the end of the day, I really wholeheartedly feel like this is the pavilion's fault, because nobody knew that it was going to be a hurricane. Not Halsey, not us. We wouldn't even have went. But the way that the pavilion handled it, the way that their staff handled it, the way that they wouldn't let people out in a dangerous situation, the way that they laughed, made fun of us, recorded us, and the way that they put people in even a worse situation by making them go back on lawn, making them go back to the sky rafters, that didn't make no sense to me. At that point, they should have just told us it was canceled. I just think they were all scary little bitches, and they made an old lady go up on the stage and do it.
If you've ever had a hamster, please comment how it died. I swear to God, they die in the most traumatic way.
So I absolutely win this trend. When I was about 8 years old, I got a pet hamster. I named him Butters. He was a little blonde, fluffy hamster. And every time I tried to touch him or even looked at him, he bit me, and I hated his guts. So I told my mom I would really like a different hamster because this one is mean. And I swear it's evil. He always gets out of his cage and just keeps chewing through everything like a maniac. We took him back to the pet store and said, hey, can we get a different one? And they said, sure, no problem. Awesome pet store, right? And then the next day after I returned my hamster, the pet store burned to the ground because of a rodent getting loose and chewing through the electrical wires. And I am convinced in my 8-year-old mind that I burned the pet store down with all of the animals in it to this day. And I carry that with me. Welcome to part 2 of Rachel's childhood traumatic hamster experience. This is Bubbles and this is Cornelia. They are the grandchildren of Delilah, the hamster that I got to replace Butters, the one who potentially burned the pet store down from part 1. Do you remember him? Well, I had a premonition that Delilah may be pregnant, and it turns out she was. She had 4 hamster babies. I ended up keeping 2 of the babies, and they ended up being a male and a female and breeding. Because they were hamsters, they didn't really care that they were siblings, and they ended up having 13 hamster babies. The pet store said, we can't take these back. This is too many hamsters. And the parents ended up breeding again like 3 weeks later. So I had 26 hamsters at one time in a giant cage that I didn't know what to do with.
Traumatic way.
This is part 3 of the hamster trauma story. So we took all the babies back. Well, unfortunately, a few of them got eaten. And we are so overwhelmed, and we just begged the pet store to take them back and get them off our hands before it got any worse. And they did, so they were super great. And I kept the dad by himself for he lived for 5 years and just died of natural hamster causes, But that's the end. There will be no part 4. I'm done talking about hamsters for forever, so that's it.
So we've reached the anniversary of my brother dying, and this happened when I was 9 years old. To make a long story short, he climbed to the top of one of those carnival rides that have an inflatable slide, and he died at the top of it, and a child pushed his dead body down the slide in front of everybody. People were screaming. He was rolling. He was resuscitated, and he is living today, so that's why this is funny. But we didn't know that he had a heart condition where basically, if his adrenaline starts pumping, it doesn't stop, and then he goes into cardiac arrest. So he got nervous at the top of the slide, and he died, which is a total, bodily malfunction. I mean, you get a little nervous, and then your body's like, nice knowing ya. People were screaming. My mother was weeping. I don't know. It was a lot. But that image will stick with me of his body rolling down the slide, dead.
This is part 2 of asking a woman to leave a wedding because she's wearing white. So my boss gives me the orders and is like, let me know when it's been handled because it's upsetting to the couple. And I start making my way around the party because it's cocktail hour and it's full of guests. We wear headsets like JLo does in the wedding planner. And someone on the team was like, I just tried to ask her and she shut me down. So good luck. Just know I tried. So I spot her because she's in a pure white, not cream, not champagne, pure white floor length dress with long sleeves. And I go up to her. She's in the conversation with a middle-aged woman. So in my lack of assertiveness, there's a part of me that I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm going to say. I actually just approached her and hoped that something would come out that worked. And what I said to her was very nicely, I was like, hi, I've been told you won't be staying for the rest of the evening. And she's pissed and she's like, I'm in the middle of a conversation. And the woman she's talking to, this middle-aged woman, looks at me like, I'm not with her, take her away. And I just repeat back, I know you're not staying with us for the rest of the evening, and my job now is to help you find your car. So I'm gonna be with you until we get you into a car. I don't know where this came from. I don't know if it was the right thing to say, but somehow it worked. And she was like, ugh, okay. So I offered to get her car from valet for her. I'm like, give me your valet ticket. I'll go do this. And I jog to the valet station and give it to this middle-aged man who I see turn into a 10-year-old boy when I hand him the ticket and I say, can you get this really quickly? We're kicking somebody out. And gleefully, he runs to go get the car. And then I go get her and her husband and I'm walking them back to their car. And the whole time she's like, I would never do this. I would never do this. I got married a couple weeks ago. I would never kick someone out for wearing white. Meanwhile, she lives a couple miles away. She could have gone home and changed or offered to put something on. She could have changed the situation. And I'm just like, yep, okay, gotta get you in the car. And then she questions my authority and is like, who are you to ask me to leave? And at this point, I'm like, this one's like a handful. We're not worried about this anymore. And so I just turned to her and I was like, listen, I'm part of the wedding planning team. If it's coming from me, it's coming from the couple. So you've been asked to leave. Just accept it. And I got a little curt with her towards the end. And then once she drives away, I go give my boss a thumbs up, like, it's been handled. Very proud of myself. And a member of the family pulls me aside and is like, do you want to know this girl's story? Obviously, yes, like, tell me everything. So she married into the family a couple of weeks ago, and before her wedding, she sent an email to the members of the family she was marrying into and said, don't forget this is my day. Don't do anything to distract from my day. And then that same bitch wore white to her new husband's cousin's wedding a couple weeks later. This was all handled drama-free because she paid for a wedding planner.
One thing about me is that when men hit on me in a particularly pushy way, I will lie to them to leave me alone, but I will do a lie that is so ridiculous that it really throws them off their rhythm. Because I'm terrible at lying, but I have a great deadpan delivery, so whenever I say the ridiculous lie, I say it with enough sincerity that the people hitting on me are always like, are you being for real right now? Once when I was at a bar, this guy would not leave me alone, and he kept asking for my number, and he said, come on, just give me your number. And I looked at him and I said, I don't have a phone. And I just kind of stared at him like this. And he stared at me like, you don't have a phone? And I was like, nope, I don't believe in him. What's he gonna do? Tell me I'm lying? I'll just lie again. Another time an Amazon delivery worker asked for my number, which is a little bit like, hey buddy, if you rub two brain cells together for a second, you might understand why I'd be hesitant to give a stranger who knows exactly where I live my number. And so I told him I actually don't know how to read. He said, you don't know how to read? I said, nope. What does not being able to read have to do with not having a phone? I have no idea, but I doubled down. He said, so you don't have a number? And I said, numbers, letters, it all just goes right over my head. And I took my package from him and I walked away. I have no ethical qualms about lying when it comes to confusing my opponent in a battle like this. I will lie and lie again, and I'll look you right in the eyes while doing it.
Someone tagged me in one of those I do cuss a little videos and said, I don't think Hadley cusses. And they would be right, because I grew up with a bless your heart mama, not a cussing mama, and they are way worse. I will never forget this one time at a grocery store. We ran into this woman, let's call her Karen, and they start talking. About a minute in, Karen is like, oh, we had dinner with one of their mutual friends the other night. Let's call her Susan. And Karen goes, yeah, Susan was trash talking you, my mom. And so I looked to my mom for her response. Now, instead of my mom calling Susan a biatch or whatever for trash talking her, I'll watch my mom on that Karen Good aisle look Karen right in the eyes and go, huh. Now, Karen, why would Susan feel so comfortable trash talking me to you? I'll watch that woman stammer until my mom just goes, have the best day, and we just walked away.
If your name is Elena and you live in East Tennessee, this video is for you. You better listen up. So I was in Walmart and they were busy, so I was waiting in the line to check out, right? And these two girls was dragging your name through the mud, I'm telling you. And yes, I was listening to their conversation because there was nothing else to do. So one of them was a light-skinned girl with a black bob, and the other one was a dark-skinned girl with purple braids. And I'm not even gonna throw caps at you. They have the right to be mad at you because you did them dirty. Of course, I don't know both sides of the story, but I'm going by what I heard. So the girl with the purple braids was saying that Elena done slept with Devon, and Devon is her man. So when the girl with the purple braids confronted Elena about it, Elena kept lying, saying like, no, it never happened. But then the girl with the purple braids found a sex tape in Devon's phone. Come on now. And then the light-skinned girl with the bob was surprised, and she said, well, hold up, because Elena done stole some of my clothes from my house. Elena, why are we stealing clothes? She said that she let you borrow a hoodie, some shoes, and a wig, I think. I don't know, something like that. And then whenever she asked for them back, you didn't have them. But you were the last person she gave them to. So, Elena, I'm going to need you to not be a thief. Like, come on now. And then they said that you done told everybody that Kendra had a yeast infection. I don't know who Kendra is either. But they said that Kendra told you about it in private, and then you done went and outed her business. Elena, you are dirty. And when I tell you they were calling you everything but a child of God, at one point they called you a buck-toothed hoe. I'm just saying, personally, I wouldn't take that level of disrespect. But I didn't come on here to make fun of you. I came on here to warn you because I believe this Sunday, Tay-Tay's having a baby shower. That's what they said. And they said they were going to jump you. So you better bring your Vaseline and Tim's because you might have to fight. Listen, Elena, I don't know what you got going on in life, but I'm going to need you to do better because you got hoes out here trying to kill you. You better watch your back. If your name is Elena and you live in East Tennessee, this video's for you. You better listen up.
Okay, one, buck tooth. Where? That's weird. You're weird. I wasn't even gonna like address this, but you want to talk all out on Walmart, everybody in the business and whatnot, so let's go ahead and clear it up. I told you I did not sleep with that man. I meant it. You have one of them community type of men, them for everybody type of men. The ones that you shouldn't be claiming, the type to keep in the house, because every single time he walk outside, he slip and fall into some, yeah. It was not me, but I hear the confusion because it was my best friend. So I wasn't gonna say nothing. She's my best friend. But yeah, she said I could say this, and I'm not saying her name, yada, yada, yada. Those are not my nudes. I don't know whose nudes they were. He's for the streets. So on to the next. Miss Kendra. I'm sorry, genuinely. But it was you and I, the only two females in a car full of men. You decided you wanted to wear a skirt, walking around smelling like rotten fish. It was either me or you, and like, I'm sorry, I wasn't taking that one. Hope you got it fixed. Yeah. As far as this whole like jumping thing goes, Tay Tay is my first cousin. You're gonna jump me at my blood cousin's baby shower? Really? Really? Okay, so yeah, not happening. If y'all want to meet up beforehand, like there's literally nothing but an opportunity. Like, sorry he ruined y'all's surprise, but I will definitely be there. If you want to arrange this before, we absolutely can. But if not, like literally, like, guess I'm seeing you guys on Sunday.
My generation going downhill, it's wiping out. Meanwhile, I'm